What is up? We are here. We are live. Okay, let's make sure everything looks good. Awesome. Cool. So, hey, everybody. Welcome into episode 2 of the Unprofessional College Football Show, or as I like to call it, clickbait for the ears. Patent pending, trademark registered. So, welcome in episode 2 of my college football podcast. So what we're going to be doing, we're going to be looking back at the first 2 weeks of the college football season, which I was going to do it after week 1, but to be honest with you guys, there wasn't anything to be gained hardly from week 1. Not enough to talk about on a program, that's for sure. So what I did is I waited till the end of week 2, which I'm so happy I did. Because now I get to see all these people freaking out over what has happened. The mega upset that has, got everyone up in arms. Texas beating Alabama, which if you guys remember correctly, if you watch this show, you're not up in arms right now because we knew what was going to happen. We predicted Texas to beat Alabama. We have Texas as a playoff team. So, yeah, we thought it was going to happen. So, I want to talk about this game first, obviously. It's the biggest game by far and with the most implications. And also one that I feel the best about being right on because when we come in to the season, and, when I look at the season, I take a big wide view. I try to take off my fan glasses no matter whether it's teams I like or teams I dislike. I try to take that off. But going into this year, I looked and I said, okay, Texas and Alabama. Who's got the advantage at quarterback? Well, pretty obvious, Texas. Who's got the advantage at wide receiver, tight end? Texas. Who had the advantage right now on the offensive line? Texas. All 5 starters returning, very highly recruited. The line wasn't awful last year, wasn't consistent. There's a difference between being consistent and being good sometimes. But who had the edge on the front 7? Texas. Why is everybody freaking out so much that they won? I mean, really? It's all about expectations. If you go in knowing, or at least thinking, well, there's a pretty good chance that, when you play a great team that you can get beat. It don't make you freak out as bad when you go back and when you actually see happen what you predicted. So I'm sitting there thinking, I don't get it. I don't know what the big deal is. But anyway, so yes, once again, Texas, Alabama, I've got a lot to say about it. Jalen Milroe, okay, he did not play his best game. Also, you got to remember, that was his 3rd game starting. Okay, he's not an experienced quarterback. Alabama doesn't have any experience. That's why they brought in Tyler Buckner to compete as the backup. So, yeah, Jalen didn't have a great game. And all these people who make out like Texas dominated Alabama, they won the game, don't get me wrong, and they were impressive. But Alabama led that thing in the 4th quarter. So you cannot say that, well, Texas just dominated Alabama. No, they didn't. They beat them. By all means, they beat them, and they deserved to win. But it's like, Sark is a great play caller. I mean, and you saw the way he masterfully carved up Alabama's defense. Almost like someone that knows that system. Anyway. Okay, so what else did we learn? Going back to week 1, not much. I mean, looking at scores, you've got Navy stomping Notre Dame. Big deal. USC killing San Jose State, big deal. I mean, you've got all these scores that you cannot take anything from these games in week one. And you can't, honestly, I'm big on not taking a lot out of the first game or two anyway. To me, the more a team changes, the more you can get them early in the year. Like if you have a team that's replacing their starting quarterback, offensive linemen, coordinators, whatever, that's when you get those teams is early in the year. Typically by the end of the year, those teams, once they get jailed, are pretty good. And I'm going to tell you, Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, fixing to be Michigan, and some others, they're always going to have good players. That's the thing about them. They're always going to have good players, and they're always going to be up there competing for a title. You're not going to win one every year. And I do see a slight difference in Alabama, but the difference that I'm saying is I'm not going to totally scrap the season what I think about them because I saw them get beat in week 2 by a team I predicted them to lose to. So that's that. All right, back to the week 1. Michigan looked good in week 1. They didn't play a wet paper napkin week 1, so they actually had to, somewhat perform. They looked great. By the way, I don't just look at these scores. I actually rewatch these games. So I don't just look at scores. You can't tell me nothing from scores. Just about. And, I mean, God, what's some yawners in week 1, though? Man, I wish the schedule was better. Now, the one game there was something to take something from was Utah and Florida. It was a pretty good game. I'll be honest with you, I did not expect Utah to win it like they did with their backup quarterback. I'm pretty disappointed in Florida. There's not been many teams so far this year that I can say I'm disappointed with. Even Alabama, I'm not disappointed in where Alabama is. Like I said, it's what I thought they would be. I thought they looked like a 10-2 team. But looking at it, looking at the Utah-Florida game, like I said, Utah, hats off, won with their backup quarterback. Florida, man, I'm beginning to wonder about Napier. I thought this spring, honestly, that he was sandbagging a little. I don't think that anymore. I mean, honestly, going in at the end of spring, I thought he's got more than he's showing. But then when I watched him play Utah, I said, uh-oh, he doesn't got more than he's showing. If he did, he would be pulling it out. So, no, he doesn't have more than he's showing. So, I'm worried about Florida. And it's not just quarterback. Everybody wants to put everything on quarterback. Their fronts are not good on both sides. They are very average, offensive and defensive front. And they have no playmakers on offense. I thought that they would have some good skill talent, but they have good skill talent, but on an SEC schedule, good is not good enough. They're just okay. So I know they're replacing their starting quarterback too, because they had a first-round quarterback drafted. So they're replacing that. And, they got a new defensive coordinator, which I happen to like, Austin Armstrong. I think he's a good defensive coordinator. I think Armstrong's going to be good. I think he has a lot of potential. Let's put it that way. I'll put it this way. Nick Saban hired him before Florida hired him. Now, Nick Saban wasn't going to give him the defensive coordinator position. So, I don't think Nick felt he was necessarily ready to do that at an SEC level. But, I guess we'll see. Because I think he's good. But, boy, they need a lot of work. They need a lot of work. All right. So looking back into week two real quick. Of course, the Texas-Alabama game, Ball State and Georgia. Just Georgia real quick. You don't know nothing about Georgia yet. Anybody who thinks that they know anything about Georgia yet, you don't know nothing about Georgia yet. Until they play somebody, we'll know this week. I think we'll get a good idea this week. Ohio State, once again, didn't look great, but didn't play nobody. I'm not worried about Ohio State. Ohio State will be fine. I got a feeling here in a few weeks you'll see that offense get to rolling, and you'll start hearing less and less questions about Ohio State. Penn State, man, has looked good. I like Penn State. Both weeks, they have looked dominant. They can run. Drew Aller looks good, and they got a defense. Man, I like Penn State this year. I'm beginning to like them for second place in the Big Ten. The more I watch them, the more I like them finishing behind Michigan and maybe finishing ahead of Ohio State. Notre Dame, NC State game, not a lot to tell from that. Notre Dame played pretty good. Don't know what NC State's got, so I'm not going to take a lot out of that. Then Utah barely beating Baylor, but once again, it was with a backup quarterback. Don't know what Baylor's got. Not a lot to say. Colorado, I got a different take on Colorado than most people do. So, first off, I like Deion. Okay, I like Deion. I like Deion when he was a player. I like Deion when he was a baseball player. I mean, I was a huge Deion fan. I think he's going to do well at Colorado, but we still don't know nothing about them. I mean, they beat TCU, who I didn't think was going to be a top 25 team this year. Honestly, I didn't. But impressive nonetheless for Colorado to win that game. And then they beat Nebraska, what is Nebraska got? We don't know. It's another one of those teams that's got a lot of changes. And I don't think Nebraska's going to be, let's just say, I don't think they're going to be pushing for any championships of any kind this year. So I just can't take a lot out of it. Colorado has looked pretty good. But once again, who have you played? As a matter of fact, I want to know how many teams have got a top 10 win right now. About 2 or 3. Honestly. The two that come right to mind are LSU and Alabama. So with both of them losing, Florida State and Texas both have a top 5 win. So those would have to be the most impressive wins of the year so far. Clemson, I'm worried about. After watching them, they ended up beating Charleston Southern, 66-17. But that was pretty much about a tie game at halftime. And I don't know what is wrong with Clemson. Now, I will say this. I'm not going to jump on Dabo as much as some people. But I do think Dabo needs to start utilizing the transfer portal. And I'm not saying you got to go out and build your team off of it like Colorado did. What I'm saying, go out there, and if you're missing one position, go find a guy. I mean, to me, it's a tool. It's just a tool to use to get better players. It's kind of like giving somebody a shovel and say, go dig a hole, and they take it out there and go, nah, I just dig it with my hands. I know how to do that. It works just as good. Why not use the shovel? Use the shovel. Use the shovel, Luke. But Dabo, you use it, man. I don't get it. But they don't look good. They don't look good on offense. And what's worried me is their defense. I expected their defense to be basically pitching shutouts while their offense is getting going. And their defense has not been that good so far. So, worried about them. Michigan, looking good. I don't think I dropped it on my last video, but on my last comment thing, I am predicting Michigan to win the national title. So from my first video, if you hadn't watched it, Michigan, undefeated, #1 seed. Georgia, 1 loss. And that 2, 3, and 4 is in no order. Georgia, 1 loss, and in the playoffs. Florida State, 1 loss, and in the playoffs. Texas, 1 loss, and in the playoffs. So that's my playoff picks. So far, so good. I feel good about everything so far. Another game that was between top 25 teams, Ole Miss and Tulane. I've watched this game twice, and I pretty much am in the feeling. I know you can't say, you don't know for sure. I know, but Tulane would have beat Ole Miss if they'd have had Pratt. I mean, that's my opinion. What would have happened? There was a lot of throws that I think Pratt would have made that weren't made, and there was definitely some runs that I don't think were successful that would have been if Pratt would have been there. Well, it definitely wouldn't have been a 17-point game. I'll put it that way. You know, Ole Miss ended up winning 37-20, but it wasn't that big. I mean, it was a tight game down to the very end. So I'm a little worried about Ole Miss, but I think they got enough with their coaching staff and their schemes. I think they got enough to hang with about anybody. And I really feeling good about my early season prediction with Georgia. I think Ole Miss can be that team. That's early season. I can change it between now and then. But from what I've seen so far, I think they can be a team that can beat Georgia, or at least push them. Not saying I'm going to predict them to win, but I think they can push them. Okay. One of the last games is Texas A&M and Miami. Man, what a difference a year makes, and a new offensive coordinator. Miami, TVD, Tyler Van Dyke, he looks like he did the year before last, but better. I really like Tyler Van Dyke as a quarterback, and he lit A&M up. He had a day. A&M did get pretty good pressure throughout the day. Not a ton, but they did get a little pressure throughout the day. A&M's offense moved the ball until late. And then Miami kind of just took over the game late. I think this is one that really says both teams are pretty good. I think both teams are around the top 20 level right now, so I think it's just one of those. And Miami kind of caught fire there at the end to get it spread, to a 15-point lead. Washington looked good. Penix looks good. Tennessee, you struggled against Austin Peay. I watched the game too. I didn't just look at the scoreboard. I watched the game. You got to play better than that. Top 10 team now. You got to play better now. North Carolina beat Appalachian State in double overtime. North Carolina has been better than I thought so far. I didn't think they would start out 2-0. I'll put it that way. And really, boy, there's a lot of blowouts. Oregon went in and beat Texas Tech on the road in Lubbock, and that's a lot bigger than a lot of people will make out that it is. I know from predicting football games in the last 7 or 8 years, it's hard for anybody to go into Lubbock and get a win. So, good on Oregon. Let's see. Wisconsin, a little bit disappointed in Wisconsin. Thought they would have a little better showing so far, but once again, a lot of new players, a new coaching staff. Give them time. Don't punt on them yet in week 2. Feeling great about Florida State. Keep it up, guys. I got you in the playoffs. Make it happen. Okay, and really a lot of blowouts other than that. So looking back in the first couple of weeks, what did we learn? Not much. Okay, what we did learn is Texas is really good, like we predicted. Alabama Still needs to work on finding a quarterback, as we predicted. And we really don't know what a lot of teams have. I will say another team, I didn't go over there, but I'm a little disappointed in because I thought they would be better early, is Kentucky. Uh, Leary, come on, man. You're better than you're playing right now. You are much better than you're playing right now. I had Kentucky battling for a possible second in the East. So I need better play out of you, Leary. But you can play a lot better than you have. Man, you've got the tools, that's for sure. So let's look at going forward. Let's look at next week. Once again, this is not a great week for games. Okay. I mean, you got Bethune-Cookman in Miami on Thursday night. That'll be a barn burner. Florida State and Boston College. Florida State's a 26-point favorite. That should go down to the wire. Penn State's a 14.5. I will say LSU and Mississippi State. LSU's a 9.5-point favorite. I do expect State to give them a better game. They're in Starkville. I think LSU is going to be really good and be a better team than Mississippi State. But an early season trip to Starkville, considering LSU's issue is their secondary, that might give them a little bit of problems. Kansas City, Missouri. I don't think Missouri gives Kansas City much of nothing. I think Kansas State. I think I said Kansas City. Kansas State should stomp Missouri. A bunch of nothing games. South Carolina at Georgia. So I am going to say I expect that to be a lot closer than the 27.5-point line. But I don't think South Carolina can beat them. I thought going into the season that South Carolina might sneak up on Georgia, but I don't know. South Carolina has not looked good early. And even though I think Georgia is not nearly as good as they have been the last couple of years, they'll probably beat South Carolina by double figures, if I had to imagine. Alabama and South Florida, I think Alabama gets back right. They figure out who their quarterback is, maybe by the end of this game. And I think they cover the 32. Let's see. Boy, there's a lot of just great games this week. Washington and Michigan State, I expect that game to be a little closer than what they say. Washington's a 16-point favorite going into East Lansing. That's a pretty high number. Michigan State, I know they got the problems with Mel Tucker and everything. Sometimes I think that gets overblown. It does affect teams, maybe the game plan, but as far as being out on the field, it doesn't matter if the coach is there or not. The talent will kind of play out like it would have if they were there. I've always said where you lose your coaches is in your schemes and your game plan. That's what hurts. Hey, if they come out and everything's even, Michigan State could beat Washington. All right. Tennessee, Florida. I think Tennessee's going to stomp Florida. Probably 14 or more. It's the line 6.5. It's in the swamp, which most years I would say that's probably a pretty good advantage. Florida's not good. Okay. A bunch of more blowouts. I don't think Wyoming and Texas will be close. Colorado State, Colorado. Colorado State's not good at all. I think Colorado continues and goes 3-0. I think Colorado only wins 4 or 5 games this year still. I really haven't seen anything in the first 2 weeks that makes me go, yes, they're definitely better than these middle of the Pac-12 teams. I definitely don't think they're going to beat Oregon, Washington, USC, Utah, not any of the better teams out of the Pac-12. So, but yeah, the slate for week 3 is not great. I'll probably watch some of Bethune-Cookman in Miami because it's the only thing on and it's football. But there's not a lot of games that make you say, there's really not an Alabama-Texas this week, a game of that magnitude. although I think some of these they predict to be blowouts will be closer. You watch, there will be some games that are big lines. I don't know where it is. I don't think it'll be Florida State and Boston College because Florida State looked great in week 1 and are super talented. And we know Florida State's pretty good. Boston College has not looked good. But a game like that where there's like a 15 to 25 point line, somebody this week is going to lose. It happens every year early because there's too many teams that you just don't know about. Don't take too much from one game. That's what gets everybody messed up. They try to take too much from one game. They see one thing, one negative, and it's like it can't be fixed. Football is a game of nuances, little bitty things where any one little thing can cost you a game. It could be tons of stuff, different things, turnovers, not being able to run the ball, not being able to throw the ball, poor defense, missing field goals. There's all kind of things that can cost you a game. And you can't just look at a scoreboard and figure it out. If you want to figure it out, you got to watch games and figure it out. That's what I like doing. I like watching games and figuring this stuff out. If everybody's predicting one thing and I think something else, I want to be right. And so far, I have been. It's not to say that it'll continue, but so far, I think every prediction I've made on my initial video, I still feel good about. So, hey, I'm happy. But that's it for tonight, guys. That is the Unprofessional College Football Show tonight. I'm going to be back hopefully next Wednesday. I'm going to try to make it an every Wednesday thing because it seems to be the easiest for me. If any of you guys would like to come in on Wednesday night and actually talk football with me, get in the chat and discuss football, I would love, because even though I'm staunch in my opinions, I can be swayed if given enough facts. Okay, so if you're interested and would like to come hang out and talk football, college football on Wednesday night, come on. I'd love to have you. And join the community, and let's all get smarter on football. See you guys.